retired homicide detective. I've interviewed thousands of people, from serial killers to ministers. Welcome to the interview room.
Good morning, everybody. Hello, can you hear me out there? Having a little issue here for a second. Hang on. How about that? Can everybody hear me? Woohoo! It's great to see everybody this Saturday morning. We've got some good stuff coming up in about an hour, but I wanted to make sure that I came up here. And I just also want to give you guys a heads up. If you'll notice, I've got this little thing up here. They removed some stuff from my forehead. So I'm looking good and moving in the right direction. So it's great to see everybody. I'm so excited for today. Dr. Brucato will be joining us here shortly. I wanted to get up here early to get your thoughts and your feelings, but there is an arrest, and obviously everybody's starting to hear it now in the Rachel Morin case. He was arrested last night, actually, at about 12:20 a.m. and booked into custody in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And he has been identified. There's going to be a presser at 2 o'clock Eastern. I'm going to cover it here, and that is why I wanted to come up here a little bit early. As expected and as predicted, he is from El Salvador. There is an ICE hold on him. So once again, this is another Riley case that's probably going to take off into national news. But the authorities I don't know if they've released his name in totality yet, but I have some inside stuff here, as you can imagine. So what I want to do is, first of all, thank each and every one of you for being here. And of course, our mods, Maui Girl, Teresa, Mimi, and Laura. Without you, this channel does not exist. But a lot of what we talked about on this channel, you will find out will come to pass. So, we took a lot of heat, Dr. Brucato and I. We always take heat for some reason on these types of things, and maybe it's jealousy or whatever it is, inexperience. I'm not sure what it is sometimes, but people are unbelievably mean. Not necessarily me, because I'm used to it, but Dr. Brucato's been taking some hits from certain folks, and it's just unprofessional, and it's just stupid. Not that they're stupid. I'm just saying the whole idea of talking trash about other professionals is just out of line, in my opinion. And I refuse to do it. So his name is Victor Martinez Hernandez. Actually, it's Victor Antonio Martinez Hernandez. He is a national. This is what's being reported currently from El Salvador. But we'll see. We're going to find out from the authorities. I have here information that he was booked in Tulsa, Oklahoma. There is an ICE hold on him with zero bond, and Tulsa PD got him. He's approximately 5'8", 160 pounds, and he's everything we said. In fact, let me show you what we talked about before. And this was a while back, and this is while we're waiting for the presser to start. Karen's working on where they're going to play that press conference. But remember, this was early on. One of my concerns was that this guy was either going to be a Mexican national or something to that effect. And I even at some point said he'd maybe from Central America, and I mentioned El Salvador, which was not unusual based on my experience being in Southern California and doing my homicide career down there. I've seen a lot of these guys. Not sure what his career path is going to be, but I'm going to submit at this point, we'll find that out from the authorities. But at the same time, if we think about where he was arrested in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that's oil country and or outdoor, blue collar worker country. So he had to have had some connections back in obviously the Maryland, the LA area. This is what we had talked about, Dr. Brucato and I. Gary nailed this guy, again, and he continues to put the truth out there about who these individuals are. And collectively, with our combined experience, I think we did a pretty good job on this guy here. And now that he's in custody, and they're going to have a press conference this afternoon to learn what those details are. But here's what we said. This was also the LA case. This was my assessment of this guy initially. And then this was our initial impressions. His LA case would show an escalation into open sexual perversion, and he was a serial killer in building. It would have been a blitz attack, escaped LA to East Coast. That shows that he was organized in his thought process, and the fact that he went to the Midwest, now i.e. the middle of the country, that even supports this even further. He was familiar with the area. He knew where the tunnel was located, and somebody would have known him in the nearby area. So it's going to be interesting. He'll lay low and then kill again. Maybe they got him up on something else, maybe a sexual assault or something like that in Oklahoma, where that's going to be really interesting to find out. Or maybe they got him in another caper over there. We're not sure. We're going to find out, though, and I'm going to be here to hear that as well with you. He needs to find an area where he feels comfortable. It sounds like Tulsa was that area. If he does not run, it's because he's on the run. Meaning, if he didn't go down to South America or across the border, then that means he's feeling comfortable in the geographic region that he was in, and no better place to blend in than Oklahoma. He's like a spider setting a web for anyone that comes into it. He's not terribly insecure. Let's see here. He has no clear type. He just hates women and is sexually aggressive with a large appetite, and you'll see that. We have evidence of that on his Facebook page. I will share with you real fast. Here's our guy. There he is. He's just as we laid out. And we're going to hear much more about this, when the authorities put it up here. Here's his booking information. You'll see down at the bottom, it says hold ice. So this guy is, right now the authorities are saying this is the guy. And up here it says 6/14/2024. So he was just arrested last night. Actually, he was booked today at 12:20 a.m. and he's going to be transferred to the Maryland Department of Corrections. So that won't take long. They can put him on a plane and get him over here into where he needs to be with the authorities. But I don't want to, get ahead of the authorities, but that just gives you a little bit information about who this guy is. And Dr. Gary's going to join us, and then we're going to all together watch this press conference. I'm trying to set up for that. So this is a great day for justice for Mike and his sister and Matt and her daughter. I can only imagine what they're feeling. This information is already floating around out there on the internet. In today's technology, it just does not take long, doesn't it? It just does not take long. So, why he was so dangerous is because, he was just so casual in everything that he did. And because he looks like a nice guy. He's Dr. Brucato once again nailed this guy. Clearly, psychotic or psychopathic and outrageous. His progression shows he's organized in the LA and the Maryland case, and that he would be trolling again. And it looks like they got him. And this is where I mentioned if he does go over the border, they would have, you guys probably remembered, I would say they would need an Article 4 warrant. Thank goodness they got this guy in the U.S. Because they have that ICE hold on him. I'm going to tell you right up front, he is not a national citizen. I took a lot of heat for that, for saying that in the very beginning. But right now, they don't put ICE holds on U.S. citizens. So when you're ready, whoever you were, you can apologize. I'll take it. But we'll let that fly. I'm above that. So this is our guy. And there's Rachel. Now, what's going to be interesting is we're going to hear stuff probably in this press conference that is going to be, we got him type of thing. Thank you, AF. Appreciate you. And thank you, Rena Rue. Love that name, Rena Rue. And thank you so much, Rena. You're awesome. We appreciate each and every one of you and our Patreon members. I mean, you're all just so amazing. And thank you so much for supporting us. I mean, Karen and I, are just so grateful. And here's where this guy will probably go. Let me share this screen with you here. If they haven't already got him back to Maryland, this is where they're going to pit him. Department of Public Safety and Corrections Facility. And the reason for that is because it's such a high profile. I don't know if they're going to put him in the local, pokey right now. It may take a little bit longer, but sometimes they have special facilities, and this is one of them in Maryland, where they can hold him for a little bit. And then, I had a guy one time, I had a caper where, he had, the victim's name was Scott Tabor. And what had happened was, and he had gone to go fishing. And this guy pulls up in a boat, and the victim gets on the boat, and he goes out, and he doesn't return. And so about a week later, Scott's body surfaced in the harbor, and a jet skier hit the body. It was horrific, even for the jet skier, and ended up circling all the wagons, and we end up identifying 2 suspects. We end up making sure that these were the right guys, and sure enough, they were. And so they take him back to Florida. He takes off to Florida. And so my partner and I, in San Diego, we have obviously Customs, Border Patrol, et cetera. And they have jets, private jet. They have jets, Lear jets, actually. So all we had to do was go book a flight, for lack of a better term. And, because they patrol the U.S. border there down in Southern California. And so we jump on this Lear jet and, get to Florida. We pick this guy up and we fly him back. And at some point, if this guy's still sitting in the county over there, they'll get him back to the facilities in Maryland pretty quickly if they have access to an aviation unit. And U.S. Marshals, if there's an extradition situation, will provide that transport for them. So that's exciting news that they're going to, get this guy and bring him over. I want to hear what you guys think. So let me put up some comments here. We have to do something about these criminals coming into our country. Yeah, it's interesting for sure. It is absolutely interesting that we do not have control of our southern border. And let me tell you, my career was in Southern California, and that border was wide open then. I mean, I started in 1982, and it was a felony to come across that border. And if this guy, who's in Tulsa, and let me show you again the screenshot if you're just getting here with us. This is his holding sheet. Hang on for a minute. Yeah, so he was, he's 5'8", 160. He was booked on 6/14/24 at 11:28 p.m. by Tulsa PD. Looks like the Delmont station. His booking time was 12:20 a.m. So they got him at 12:20 a.m. And somebody's asking about my forehead, Patty. Thank you for asking about my forehead. They removed some basal cell up there, and thank the Lord they got it. So I'm good to go. You know me. Nothing's going to stop McDonough. And the doctors were so funny. I got great docs. And anyway, this is not my first fight with skin cancer. I've had it for many years, and it keeps popping up all over the place. I'm just grateful that the good Lord keeps me moving in the right direction. And, I told my sweetheart, my Karen, you can see, because I've got these stitches up here and it's made my left eyebrow shoot down. So I told her, I said, I'm just going to walk around and start looking at people really suspicious, and we'll see what YouTube does. I'll just walk around like that, like, hey, what's going on over there? And she's like, you're a nut. I said, I know, but you love me. And that's all that counts. So anyway, getting back to this guy here on the ice hold. Let me see here. Let me show you that one. So right here, down at the bottom, you'll see that there's, the case number, and that he's set for a court date of today, zero bond, but it says hold/ice. This is an absolutely great day, for Rachel's family and her friends. I mean, does it get any better than this for them? That, but the sad part here is we're looking at, again, a Department of Homeland Security hold. So this could be another, Riley situation where this guy is not a legal citizen and he has taken the life of an amazing human being, a mother, a daughter. It's crazy. Thank you so much, Rhino Girl from Dubai. Karen and Bud, so happy to join. Thank you so much for your kindness, and your sweet words there. Thanks, it's appreciated. This is a great day for justice, and to be honest, we knew that this day would come, right? We all knew that this day would come because there is no way this guy could have, stayed below the radar that long unless he would have crossed that border. Okay. And he didn't do that, or he may have done it and come back. We don't know that yet, right? But, he's here and they nailed him. And I'm going to put money on it that it's going to be, a DNA match, because they wouldn't be having this conference this afternoon if that wasn't the case. They're going to tell everybody what we need, what we're going to want to hear. And it's going to be exciting to hear that for sure. Let's see here. Thank you so much. Nice, Marie. You're so kind. And Gary's supposed to jump in here. We're waiting for Gary. He called me a little bit ago. He was really excited. But, the one thing I love about Dr. Brucato, and I don't know if you saw him in New York the other day, but so many people were saying such crazy things, not about him, but just about the totality of, what's going on the list case and all this other stuff. While we're waiting for him, I don't know about you, but how do you avoid not talking about the totality of all of that, stuff that was found, from that legal assistance from John Ray, and, about, other family members over there. I mean, you can't ignore that stuff. I mean, if you connect it to, if anybody would have connected that to Ted Bundy, everybody would have said, "Oh, this is horrific," that his family is, creating this type of art or whatever it is. I mean, that's some pretty specific stuff. And not one time did I hear Gary say in any way, shape, or form, and if anybody can go watch it, he didn't say she's involved. He said, what I'm seeing here is very disturbing. And that, what I saw was very disturbing. That makes a lot of sense. If we take Stephen Stearns for an example, and he had that stuff on his phone, wouldn't that be disturbing? When this guy, has been arrested for, killing Madeleine Soto, of course that's all disturbing. And for anybody to say differently, quite frankly, is an amateur. And, this is what we study for a career. And he wrote the book. Read the book. And, for people to take shots at him was, in my opinion, just horrible. It's just horrible. Unnecessary, not necessary. So on the Instagram or the fake news folks out there are already the algorithms are already hitting this guy's name on Facebook, and they're pushing all kinds of craziness. So be careful what you're pulling up on Facebook I'll tell everybody. This picture that I'm going to share with you, this is your guy. So if you see this guy, that's your guy. This is the guy that they're going to tell us about today. Okay. And they caught him in Tulsa, Oklahoma, booked him last night at 12:40 in the morning. And he looks like our guy in the original from a side shot. He looks pretty good. He's even still got the same haircut. Says he works from home in the TV repair concept, but I'm not sure about that. Said he went to school in the Philippines. Not sure about that. I don't know if it's an algorithm or a troll bot that got caught up in his name. The DNA will provide us all the information that we need to know for sure. But going way back, one of the concerns that I had was that if he took off over the border, and we don't know yet if he came back from the border or what the situation is. Okay. And hang on, let me pull this news article up that's coming up here. Maybe they got some more. Give me a second, guys. Let's see here. I think this news agency is going to cover it. Okay. Yeah, it says, let me share this with you. Modern technology. Yeah. Right. Everybody should be able to see that. It's got the link here to the Harford County Sheriff's Office over. So he's going to give a media day update on the Rachel Morin homicide at 2 p.m. Eastern, which is in 30 minutes. So we'll see where that's going to go. Great job on Harford County's behalf. And I'm waiting for Gary to get up in here because I think one of the things that's really interesting on this guy is, when early on, the family, when we had the family on, we talked about, doing different things in terms of, looking in certain areas and certain directions. And, hang on for a minute.
No worries.
Karen is like, she's on my left shoulder over here, sending me information. And I'm like, honey, I can't show that sketch right now. I can't pull it up right now. Anyway, sorry about that. I love this girl to death. She's out there, she is a machine. If you're new to our channel, my sweetheart is an absolute machine. She's brilliant. And at the same time, I can't keep up with her. She's sending me 10 things behind the scenes over here, and I'm trying to talk to you guys. She's cracking up. I just love her. She's just so funny. Anyway, so this, what is this guy's name, right? People are asking what his name is. His name is Victor Martinez Hernandez. Okay, that's our guy. They're gonna tie us together here today in this press conference in terms of who he is, and what he's all about. Here comes Gary. I gotta laugh because when he gets in here, and by the way, if you didn't see some of our stuff early on, okay, hey Gary,
how are you? I didn't realize I was supposed to come on before 2.
No, that's fine. I was just telling everybody. Actually, I was just about ready to mention how early on, if people go back and watch our stuff and the things that you were talking about with this guy, I showed here a couple of minutes ago about some of your initial impressions.
Oh,
and about how the attack would have occurred. You were worried about him laying low, but we don't know if he had gone. One of the things I was sharing with the audience is collectively, we're saying this guy, if he goes across the border, I think we were both in agreement that this guy looked like, not a U.S. citizen as a whole. And that was based on my experience working in Southern California and seeing this type of character. And I think I even mentioned at one point that he was from Central America, possibly. And I think I even mentioned San Salvador, and the two of us, we both agreed, yeah, that's a high probability, or Guatemala or something like that. And now we're learning that it looks like he is a Salvadoran native, and that there's an ICE hold on him. But I was also telling the audience about your press conference the other day.
Oh.
And, how I thought you were so level set on that press conference, and that your assessment of that whole situation was, and I'm still going to say, still on target.
It was taken out of, I was taken out of context, unfortunately. All I was trying to say is that nothing could be assumed or said for sure based on some circumstantial stuff that was found. And indeed, the jury is even out on whether that stuff is even going to be something that she was looking up, or that perhaps Rex was using her computer or anything. I was hoping that at some point that would have been said, although the artwork that was there was signed with her name. And essentially all I was trying to say is there are 3 possibilities, right? Either this has no meaning at all, that this person, that Rex was living a double life and nobody in the home had any idea of anything. The second possibility, which is the least likely, I think, although I was very neutral about it at the conference, is that there was some involvement because it's actually enjoyed by other people in the home. I think it's not going to be the case. And the third is, if there is some involvement, that a lot of that stuff would really reflect a kind of traumatized person, that somebody for whom this horrible stuff is normalized. And it got, I think, sort of taken out of context. I'm not sure how much people watched before they reacted. And I do think that if what people heard was that I thought that I was endorsing the idea that this person was, this woman is involved directly or something, rather than being victimized by, I think they would have been misunderstanding what I was trying to say. And my goal really was to try to, I guess, tamp things down by giving some facts on how frequently serial killers work with other people, which is about 20% of the time. So that means 80% of the time they don't. And to kind of talk a little bit about how this offender was kind of unique in the annals of New York crime because of the torture chamber that he allegedly had. I think I'm not sure, but I don't think anyone before me in the media had pointed out what hard points means. They looked it up, I guess, and saw that hard point can refer to something like a weight distribution, thing like on an airplane, like where you put a missile or bomb or something. So they felt it probably meant like where you hang someone on a ceiling according to the weight. But I know it's an architectural term, a mechanical term for those little screws that you put in the wall to hang, like at a garage. And so what I said was we have to envision somebody who had kind of like a torture chamber with all these devices and tools on those screws, in this room, this soundproof room. And that was in his house, And so what I think is fair is the point I think John Ray is trying to make, and I didn't really see anybody grasping it. I'm not sure why. They got caught up in the sensation and the impulse of, and how horrible it was, and it was indeed horrible. But the point he was trying to make is when you talk about a double life, you're talking about a situation where the people living in a home have no clue at all of what's going on. And what he is trying to say is that maybe this disturbing stuff, if it is indeed the daughter's, would reflect exposure. That it's not quite a double life if it's spilling out into the house and someone's being exposed to it. And then of course, there are mysteries like the daughter's hair and things like that. And but I would go on record saying here, and I appreciate you letting me talk about it, that if I had been able to talk about it in detail, what I would have wanted to clarify is the most probable thing is that if anything did spill over, it was more like a kind of victimization, Stockholm syndrome kind of thing, where you're in a scary, horrible thing, and it gets normalized, and you try to kind of get along with the person. But I really appreciate you letting me talk about that, Chris, because I was really amazed at how people can misinterpret you. And remember, just because you're standing next to somebody presenting some idea doesn't mean you agree with their idea. In the same way that people felt that you can't say that just because you live with a serial killer that you are committing crimes. You can't be guilty by association like that, necessarily. And if people had really listened, they would have understood that I was coming in as a professional person trying to say, here are the various possibilities, but I'm agnostic and committed to none of them, and it may mean nothing. And, and the other thing is I wanted to do was to have a chance to talk a little bit about the Cold Case Foundation, and to let people know that if they're scared to come forward, even though I would emphasize they should go to law enforcement, but if they're afraid to, and they bring something to the Cold Case Foundation, it'll get routed where it has to go, but they'll receive a supportive, kind response. But I appreciate you letting me talk about that. Now, I think that we should
let's talk about a great day.
Yeah.
For Rachel's family and her friends here. And I thank you for clearing that up, from your perspective, because
I thought it was clear already, but you never know how people.
We want to make sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is a great day for justice. It sounds like they've got a guy, Victor Martinez Hernandez.
Do you have a picture of him?
I do have a picture of him.
I don't know if you already shared that with anybody.
Yeah, I did, but I'll share it again. Hang on. So this is the guy that they have in custody. He's in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he was arrested last night at 12. Well, he was arrested at 11:28 p.m. and booked at 12:20 a.m. He is 5'8", 160 pounds, and he has an ICE hold, and as a court appearance date of today, So that means ICE and immigration. This guy is not a U.S. citizen if they have an ICE hold on him in the jail. And this could turn very careful or very quickly into another Riley situation from George, where the young nurse. This could be another situation on the East Coast where this guy, if he is not a U.S. citizen, which it looks like he isn't based on the documentation from the court system here, this is not going to be good. It's not going to be good. It's going to.
I mean, look, this is an accused person. Of course, we don't know any detail, but one of the things that I had said when we were talking about this case, Chris, is that I'm always interested in people who invade homes because I suspect that they have a kind of envy of people who have a stable, happy home, or at least that they perceive to be. And as a consequence, I said, this is probably going to be like a really transient guy, from maybe perhaps an unsteady, unattached kind of youth. And sure enough, I mean, as I had said, I mean, don't go looking for him in Maryland or California. He anywhere goes, he's transient. And of course, he's found in Oklahoma. And we had also said, he has to be getting around somehow. And I want to know if this guy has a car, or he was going by bus or train or what. But the fact of the matter is, this is a transient dude. And just like we said, invisible, looks like an average Joe on the street, not a, and I think you would even look at him and you wouldn't say, wow, what a scary, mean looking guy. He's kind of unassuming. And then you have to imagine that if that is the culprit, that kind of monster that would have come out, and the compensation and it's just so horrifying. And, but we were very big on the idea that, there was this idea of being kind of inadequate and not really belonging. And it's also going to be interesting to see if there are things that are suggestive of the kind of misogyny that we anticipated in this person.
There is a lot of it.
Already is.
Yeah, I can't put some of it up because it's just too disrespectful to women.
Oh, so, good. I appreciate that, Chris, and I really appreciate that.
But if anybody wants to see it, you can see it on his Facebook page. He has art up there that's pretty interesting, pretty graphic. But me over here, and you, of course, obviously the utmost professional that you are. We don't need that,
I appreciate that. I mean, but I think the point is essentially that there was misogyny here and objectification and rage and everything else. And the other thing is, Chris, what we had said was that this person had characteristics of a budding serial killer. And I'm always grateful when someone that I think is could be a budding serial killer is abducted, because Lord knows what they were doing. Now, really, the most important thing for me to hear, beyond his capture and how grateful the family must feel and how good God is, in my opinion, right, is that it's entirely possible that he did assault someone else or kill someone else, because one of the fears we had was that he was going to be all over the place and probably changing the MO, just kind of experimenting, doing whatever, being opportunistic. And if that happened, it could just be the DNA tied him to something. I hope that's not the case. I really do. It's entirely possible that no one else was harmed. But Chris, I mean, how'd they get DNA?
Well, there's only a couple of ways, right? They had a lead into,
family, maybe.
The familiar DNA, right? The family stuff, or they got another hit, and that he may have been arrested on maybe a drunk in public or something to that effect. They do a buccal swab coming in to the jail system. They throw that into CODIS and they go, whoa, looky here. We got our guy. That won't surprise me either. Okay. But
right.
I think based on what you were talking about and early on this thing and what we were talking about with the family, and that's the one thing I love about our platform here at the interview room. This is a safe place for families. Okay. And, some people may agree and some people may disagree with that, but the interview room is a place where families can be and have a say in their family member's case. And we're not here to solve these cases. That's law enforcement's responsibility. We're here to support the family, support the victims, and that's it. There's nothing more, nothing less. It's that simple. And that's exactly what we do at the Cold Case Foundation when we're approached by a family because they've run out of options. They typically introduce us to the law enforcement agency, and then we work side by side with that law enforcement agency. And we, there are 167 professionals from around the world that are on this team. And what we do is we provide information, another set of eyes, to an investigative agency. And I was just on 2 cases this week, talking to an agency that they've been working, for 10, 15, 20 years on one of them. And they're out of leads. And we have been working with one agency. I've been working on this one case for over a year with them. And, the Morin family came to us, Michael, his sister, and her sister came to us and said, hey, would you guys give us an insight here? And Gary and I, we gave them some insight. And there's a lot of other stuff that took place behind the scenes that we will not talk about in terms of for the family. And this is their day now that they get to hear from the authorities as appropriately who investigated this thing from the ground up and keeps moving it. And today we're going to, in about, what time is it right now?
12
So in about 12 minutes, we're going to hear the press conference. So let me, Gary, kind of pick it up there for a minute. I want to go try to find the press conference real fast and set it up real quick. If that's okay with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I just, when we had the couple of episodes here with members of the family, Chris and I were very moved by how spiritually inclined the family was. And, one of the things that Chris and I said to them is, your sister will help you from the other side. This will get solved, pray, and you'll see this is going to get solved. And of course, this is only a suspect, but if there's DNA, and the guy certainly looks like the sketch and everything, I mean, but that must be very consoling. But of course, they'll wait until the day that there's an official conviction, as we all should. And then there's going to be a process of healing, and if it's even possible. And, we had said, Chris and I said, the really hard part is coming once this guy gets arrested, because you're going to have to sit there in a courtroom, look at him, and want to leap out of the chair and be unable to make sense out of this and hear details. And so I just think this is a time to keep the family in your prayers. And one of the things I hope is that the true crime community, I mean, Chris really seems to represent the kind of zenith of how you do true crime in a sensitive way, because he's a professional that got into this. But, the true crime community can be very invasive and inappropriate and vapid and spread all kinds of nonsense. And, lots of people from armchairs who have no idea what they're talking about. And it's really sad, because it does, it can really hurt, it can hurt people. And that I think the idea is that, I hope that the true crime community leaves this family be, as they sort this stuff out, and as they come to terms with it. I hope that they don't have to have, microphones thrust in their faces and people that want to have hot episodes of, their show talking about it or showing up at someone's house or thing, and all these crazy things that people do. I just think it's a time of pulling back and letting this family heal. And that is the essence of what has been important to me for almost 3 decades now, is the victims. And that is what I found so upsetting about the way that things were taken out of context yesterday, because, on Thursday, because I really want people to understand that victims are always in my heart and at the center of everything I choose to do. Now, does anybody have anything that they'd like to talk about with regard to Rachel before we get on this press conference? Anything anybody is remembering that we discussed that they'd really like to see addressed? I, for one, am really curious if Rachel was randomly attacked or if she was stalked. That is something that there was a disagreement about. I personally thought that it was kind of random, that he set up an ambush and just sort of grabbed someone. But that is something the jury is out about. We don't know. Any thoughts about that? Anybody have any thoughts about if this guy likely committed other offenses in the meantime?
And while we're waiting for that, Gary, I think I found a page here. So when it starts, I'll kick it up here.
Did you hear, Chris, what I was saying?
Barely, because I was doing something on the, and I had you muted on the other screen.
I was telling the audience that, number one.
Yes, and I'm going to stream I'm sorry, somebody just asked. I didn't mean to interrupt, but yes, we're going to stream the presser here, and Gary and I are going to listen to it with you guys. So it's going to be pretty interesting. But go ahead, finish your thought.
What I was saying to the audience when you didn't hear was, number one, that I really hope that the family had expressed a lot of spiritual belief, and that we encouraged them, to pray, and that Rachel would help from the other side, and then we knew, we said we were confident this was getting solved, and that the hard part's coming now, having to sit there and watch a suspect talk about the offense, if he was involved, and this is the right guy, wanting to jump out of the chair, and be furious, impact statements. It's going to be hard. And then I said, Chris, that I really hope the true crime community, which can get really ugly, just leaves these people alone, and lets them heal, and doesn't talk about a bunch of nonsense, and because they don't know what they're talking about, and I emphasized that that's the whole point of what was bothering me about the way I was misinterpreted Thursday, is that we are all about the victims, and the family. There's that kind of effect. It's like throwing a pebble in the water. There's that ripple effect where this whole family are affected forever by this, and so I can't imagine what they're feeling, Chris. Chris, you've always talked about your personal loss, and I think you would agree, and I've experienced great loss too, and I think you'd agree that this is going to help, but it's not really going to end this pain.
Yeah, no, and I'll let people know that we communicated with the family this morning.
Yeah,
we knew about this right away, and they were just, as you can imagine, their emotions are running 100 miles an hour. They're excited, they're scared, they're worried about the future. Did they get it right? Do the authorities have, the right guy? And if so, et cetera, et cetera. And while I was on the phone was ringing, from the other side, from the Harford County Sheriff's Department. And so I disconnected, and you guys take care of yourself. God bless you. Let me know when they're going to talk about it. And so that's how we learned about it. But the emotions that go, those of us, and there are many, and probably everybody in chat has lost somebody close to them. And there are no words for the moment you hear. And in a brutal, situation like this, where another human being has been, taken from you through such violence, You just can't wrap your mind around it. You just can't wrap your mind around it. And so it takes years and years. And of course, Karen and I went through that experience September 3rd, 2003. We're into 21 years here. And, that's what Rachel's family is experiencing. And, the most we can do as friends and family, families around the world is support them through, our daily devotion to whatever, deity we feel or experience, and each of us, those are different in of itself. So we just have to be mindful of that. And I want to explain what an ICE hold is. ICE is Immigration Customs Enforcement. And so you'll see down here, it says hold ICE. That means, and then they have a case number here. Okay. And then it says zero bond. That means this guy's not getting out of jail. And that, just so you guys know, meaning the authorities, law enforcement, that he is in this ICE hold from the authorities. And what that means is don't let this guy out of jail by accident. Because when the state's done with him, then the feds are going to come in and they're going to take him because he's not a U.S. citizen. That's what that ICE hold is. So basically, this is an indicator that this individual could be, and there's a high probability he's not a U.S. citizen. And that's why that hold is there. Those of you who are joining us, we're about a couple of minutes away from a press conference out of Maryland. Let me go over here for a second. And we're all going to listen to this together. I've got the local news on Baltimore. So we'll see how this is going to unfold here. But we'll just let that run for a little bit. I hope that clarified what that ICE hold was. And then let's see here. Also, if you're just joining us, I had a little, surgery up here. I'm good, not a problem. And I told everybody I'm just going to walk around like that. I'm going to be that Columbo, he turns around and, kind of lets everybody know what's going on. Yes, and thinking of Matt and Mike and the family and the children, this is an amazing day for Rachel. This is her day. And let me test this real fast to make sure it's working in terms of sound. Tell me if you guys can hear this.
A month and 6 months of Paramount Plus Essential Plan on us.
Can everybody hear that?
So stinking cute. Don't miss If. In theaters now.
If rated PG.
You just got evicted and you trying to go sit on the grass and watch a movie? Yeah.
Okay, so the audio is good. So we're good to go there. I'll keep it out for now. So we're just kind of, waiting for this moment. But I will go on the record again, if this is their guy who it looks like it's going to be, based on the conversation I had this morning with, Inside Track, then there's going to be some really good stuff coming. And we'll see how it's going to go today, right? I'm answering. I said he would probably be from Central America or Mexico. Took a lot of heat for that, but that's okay. If we're batting 1,000 still, then I'll continue to take some of those knuckleballs to the helmet. Looks like it's going to be 58 in Baltimore. First Alert Weather is telling us where we're going. But if it doesn't come up here real fast, then I'll make sure I jump into another station. But Karen says this is where they're going to live stream it. Okay, so I'm good to go.
Chris, do you remember the Greek myth of Cassandra? Remember that name from Greek mythology?
I don't, to be honest with you, but refresh my memory.
Well, Cassandra, who was the daughter of, I think, the last king of Troy, was given the gift of prophecy, but because she rejected a sexual advance from Apollo, he cursed her so that nobody would ever believe her predictions, even though they were always right. So the word Cassandra has become a word for a person who is very prescient about what will come to pass, but who has to take a lot of heat for it forever. And that's that's a word that comes to mind when I think of you.
You know, I had a case one time. I had a case one time that, and you know the one that obviously the El Torito, you know that one where we talked the guy back across the border, and that was kind of an anomaly. But I had a case one time where this guy was murdered, and it's an open field, and there's a lot of trees and stuff around, and the guy is deceased underneath this tree. And I show up, and the patrol had it locked down. And anyway, long story short, I get up in there and I see this guy, sitting in the back of a patrol car. And I said, hey, what do we got? And he goes, oh, you're not going to believe this. And I said, well, what's up? And he says, well, we got a great witness. I said, really? Where is he? And he points to this platform up in the middle of the tree. And he goes, well, he's over there. And he points to the patrol car, and he's in the car, but he lives there. And he points to this piece of plywood, and it looked like a fort house, a tree house. He says, but he lives there. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, no, I'm serious, Mac. He lives right there. And I was like, oh my gosh. So this guy was...
Chris, you see what somebody just said to you?
No, what?
This is great. They said, when you were on Mike's show, I said, this guy needs his own YouTube. I wasn't wrong. That's terrific.
I know, right?
Well, I guess you needed your own YouTube, Chris. You're gifted.
Well, here I am. Just, Mike's good with cults, but he never worked a murder, ever. And so I was great for that. But anyway, getting back to the story. So I see this guy, and I go over and talk to him, and lo and behold, of course, he's not a U.S. citizen. Are we making sure?
There.
Okay, hang on for a minute. Let me get to the... Can you send me the Facebook page? Okay, hang on. It's live on a Facebook. I'm trying to get it, guys. Hang on. Give me a minute.
Is that like near Johns Hopkins or something, what we're seeing?
I don't know. Hang on for a minute. Let me try to find this.
Thank you for all the nice things people are saying in the chat. As Willy Wonka said, butchering a quote from Shakespeare, so shines a good deed in a weary world.
Hello? Special Agent in charge.
Okay, can you guys hear that?
Field Office. Allison Cooley, Harford County Attorney. Also in attendance are Colonel William Davis.
Let me know you guys can hear that.
Deputy Harford County Sheriff's Office. Sergeant Christopher Maddox, Criminal Investigations Division, Harford County Sheriff's Office. David Hughes, Deputy Chief, Bel Air Police Department. John Cook, Chief of Staff, Washington, Baltimore, HIDA. Patrick Vincenti, President of the Harford County Council, and members of Rachel's family. After Ms. Healy concludes her remarks, Patty Morin, Rachel's mom, will offer a few remarks as well. She will not be taking questions today. We know that you have many questions for all of us. Please keep in mind that we will try to answer as many as we can, but this investigation is still ongoing, and there are some details we cannot discuss at this time. Again, thank you for joining us, taking your time and dedication to telling Rachel's story. And with that, Sheriff Gaylor.
Thanks, Christy. Good afternoon, everybody. As Christy said, I'm Harford County Sheriff Jeff Gaylor. As everyone's aware, on August 6, 2023, our peaceful Harford County community was rocked when the body of Rachel Morin was discovered in an area just about a mile from here, just off the Ma and Pa hiking trail here just outside the town of Bel Air. In addition to the impact to our local Harford County community, Rachel's murder gained national and even international attention. The young mother of 5, whose life was violently taken in a public location, is one of the safest places in the state. It's not supposed to happen, and it shouldn't have happened. In the days and months since Rachel was murdered, Rachel's family and friends, our Harford County community, and the men and women of the Harford County Sheriff's Office, along with all of our allied partners, have worked tirelessly to bring the individual responsible for her death to justice. Our deputies and our partners have worked this case with persistence and passion for Rachel and for her family every day over the past 10 months. Just over 3 weeks ago, on May 20th, on what should have been Rachel's 38th birthday, and in a poetic coincidence, or perhaps in Rachel's own divine assistance, our investigators uncovered a lead that led us to this day. And on this day, I'm here to tell you, Rachel's murderer is no longer a free man. Hopefully, he will never have the opportunity to walk free again. The lead we received was related to DNA evidence and allowed investigators to finally put a name to the image of the suspect in the video from Los Angeles, which we released 2 weeks after Rachel's death. After we had the video, we knew what he looked like. We knew what he looked like, but we didn't know who he was. With the new DNA evidence, now we know who he is, but we still didn't know where he was. As I have stated many times, this killer could have been laying his head in any community in the country or even in the world, and indeed, that was completely accurate. Over the past 2 weeks, investigators continued their diligent investigation and tracked our suspect all the way from Prince George's County to Tulsa, Oklahoma. Our investigators also obtained an arrest warrant yesterday afternoon, and as the arrest warrant was being issued, we met with Rachel's family, many of whom are with us today, to update them on the case and asked of them an almost impossible request, and that was to keep the information about the identity and the arrest warrant to themselves and protected to allow investigators the opportunity to try to apprehend this suspect before it was made public in the news, so that our suspect did not have the opportunity to learn that he was wanted and to once again flee. 5 hours after meeting with the family and just before midnight our time, police in Tulsa, Oklahoma, assisted by our federal partners, located and arrested Rachel's murderer, Victor Antonio Martinez Hernandez. So far, we have learned that the suspect, now pictured on the screens, is a 23-year-old citizen of El Salvador who illegally crossed the border into the United States in February of 2023. We all suspected that perhaps Rachel was not his first victim, and it's my understanding that this suspect, this monster, fled to the United States illegally after committing the brutal murder of a young woman in El Salvador a month early in January of 2023. Once in our country, and likely emboldened by his anonymity, he brutally attacked a 9-year-old girl and her mother during a home invasion in March of 2023 in Los Angeles. And as everyone I believe is aware, that was our first DNA match linking Rachel's case to the Los Angeles case. It has been a fear of mine that once we identified this suspect, the result would be exactly this. And I want to now direct these comments to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and to every member in both chambers of Congress. We are 1,800 miles away here in Harford County. We are 1,800 miles away from the southern border, and the American citizens are not safe because of failed immigration policies. This is the second time in just 2 years that an innocent Harford County woman has lost her life to a criminal in our country illegally. Let me repeat that. 1,800 miles from the southern border, and this is the second woman in our county to be killed by an illegal alien. Suspects, in both cases, they are suspects from El Salvador with ties to criminal gangs. Should not be happening. Victor Hernandez did not come here to make a better life for himself or for his family. He came here to escape the crime he committed in El Salvador. He came here and murdered Rachel, and God willing, no one else. But that should have never been allowed to happen. Moving on, I want to make it clear that this case does not get solved, and we do not bring this criminal to justice without the amazing law enforcement teamwork from our local, state, and federal partners. And I mean that in all sincerity. Rachel's homicide does not get solved. There is no arrest without all of us working together. And for that, I want to thank everyone here in the front of the room and all those who aren't here, but I'm going to cover a list in a minute. I want to thank all of them for their assistance to our agency over the past 10 months. We are profoundly grateful for your dedication and support. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, especially the Baltimore Field Office, rendered invaluable assistance throughout the course of the investigation. Similarly, the State Police, Maryland State Police Crime Laboratory contributed greatly with their expertise and resources. I must also say thank you to the Los Angeles Police Department, Department of Homeland Security, Naval Criminal Investigative Services, the Maryland State Police Bel Air Barrack, the U.S. Marshal Service Fugitive Task Force, the Harford County State's Attorney's Office, the Maryland Department of Natural Resources Police, the Bel Air Police Department, Maryland Coordination and Analysis Center, the Baltimore Washington HIDA, the Tulsa, Oklahoma Police Department, El Salvadorian authorities, and the many law enforcement agencies, both state and local, who provided invaluable assistance to the Harford County Sheriff's Office during this investigation. As I think is evident, this was truly a comprehensive law enforcement effort, and I am exceptionally proud of the work done by the collective team and countless others who made last night's arrest in Tulsa possible. I also want to thank the members of our Harford County community for their patience, support, and cooperation throughout this investigation, to include hundreds upon hundreds of tips that our investigators have received. Today, we were able to provide what some like to refer to as closure to Rachel's family and for our Harford County community. I want to thank the members of the Morin family, and you're going to hear from, as Christy said, from Patricia here in a minute, but no questions. They have been by the side of our detectives this entire time, doing anything that they could do to help the investigation and to help our detectives, to help bring this individual that took Rachel's life to justice. I recognize there is nothing that will ever close the door or bring true closure concerning the loss of Rachel, but it is my hope and the hope of all involved working this case that the arrest of this suspect brings her family and our Harford County community some peace. I would like to now ask FBI Baltimore Field Office Special Agent in Charge, William DeBano, did I get it right? DeBano, to offer a few remarks.
Thank you, Sheriff Gaylor. Good afternoon. My name is Bill Del Bagno. I'm the Special Agent in Charge of the FBI Baltimore Field Office. Today, our focus remains on Rachel, bringing justice for her, finding answers for her family and loved ones, and making sure the violent criminal who so viciously took her life cannot harm anyone else. The FBI is proud to stand united with our partners in the Harford County Sheriff's Office as we announce this arrest. We know nothing can take away the pain and the anguish Rachel's family and friends have endured. Please know, on behalf of the FBI, our hearts are with you. To the public, keeping our community safe is one of the FBI's highest priorities, and so are the invaluable partnerships required to accomplish this. During the investigation, here's what I can share from the FBI. Our investigative genetic genealogy team in Baltimore worked countless hours to identify the suspect by using crime scene DNA and tracing that DNA to potential family members. Investigators even traveled to El Salvador as part of their efforts to identify this killer. To find the suspect, we provided technical assistance, helping to pinpoint his location. And that brings us to last night, where Tulsa police and FBI agents were able to successfully apprehend and arrest the suspect in Oklahoma. Harford County and the investigators on this case worked every angle, tirelessly and constantly, never giving up and following every lead and piece of evidence. We thank Harford County for their partnership and bringing us into the investigation. As Sheriff Gaylor outlined, we thank everyone who helped make this arrest possible. To all those who have been waiting for an arrest to be made, for answers, we hope this brings a sense of justice and some peace. The FBI vows to continue to work every day to keep our community safe and prioritize the partnerships so vital to doing that. Thank you. I will now turn it over to Evan Campanella, the Deputy Special Agent in Charge, HSI, Baltimore.
Thank you, Sec Del Bagno. First off, I would like to thank Sheriff Gaylor for having HSI present for today's announcement. Today's announcement is the culmination of almost 1 year of investigative activity that might not always go noticed by the public. This investigation highlights the cooperation and the collaboration HSI has with its state and local and federal partners. And I'm happy to be here today with Sheriff Gaylor and our partners to announce the arrest of Mr. Martinez Hernandez. I hope that today's announcement, as the sheriff pointed out, will help bring some closure to Rachel's family. And again, I would like to thank Sheriff Gaylor for asking HSI to participate in this investigation and to be here for today's announcement. I would now like to invite Harford County State's Attorney, Allison Healy, to the podium for her remarks.
Good afternoon. I want to commend the Harford County Sheriff's Office and other assisting agencies on the hard work, expertise, and diligence identifying and apprehending the suspect in the murder of Rachel Morin. They worked tirelessly on this lengthy and difficult investigation for the public safety of our community and bringing Rachel's family peace, knowing that the next step is prosecution. I will personally be leading the prosecution of this case. While the defendant is innocent until and unless he is proven guilty, Harford County and our neighboring communities can rest assured that my office will take all steps necessary to ensure that justice is served for Rachel Morin and her family. We have already begun coordinating with the Warrant Apprehension Unit of the Harford County Sheriff's Office to handle the extradition of the defendant to Harford County. And once the defendant has been transported back to Harford County, prosecution will commence. Thank you. It is my pleasure to introduce to you all Patricia Morin.
I'm going to make this really short because I'm very emotional. I just want to take this time to thank all of the law enforcement for all their hard work. I know that a lot of times we don't see what goes on behind the scenes. You know, you see the policeman in the car when you write you a ticket, but you don't see the real work that happens behind. And around Christmas time, we did a canvassing with Harford County, thank you. And they brought us into a room and I could see all the people that were involved. And that's not even all the external agencies that were involved. And it just gave me such hope that they really did care about our family and my daughter, that they were going to work diligently to find the person that murdered her. At one point, when things seemed like really bleak and hopeless, the lead detective said to me, he said, patience will win in the end. And that's what they've been doing. They've been diligently working very hard, and they've been patiently working through all the leads. And it's because of that that we have an arrest today. So I'm very thankful and just very grateful to these men. And I'm also very grateful to the press, because you kept her story alive so that people would still continue to send in tips. And that helped them to do their job. So I want to thank the press as well. But I don't know if this is, oops, sorry about that. I don't know if this is kosher or not. I'm gonna step away from the pulpit. But I think we should applaud them, just because I am so grateful that they have brought us to this place. Because at some of the points during this, I didn't think that we were ever going to have an end, that it was going to be a cold case. So I would like to applaud them.
Thank you. And it's a case that touched us all. So with that, we are going to take some questions. As Christy said, this is still an active investigation. So there's some things that we're not free to speak about or won't be speaking about. So with that, does anybody have any questions that we can answer for any of the speakers?
I have a question. I want to know if you can a little bit, but what actually happens right now? Like we've read it.
I'm very familiar with ICE detainers.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure.
Yes, we are there has been an ICE detainer filed on him because he is in this country illegally out in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He would not be deported before answering for these charges. So I honestly believe that's the last place he wants to go. I think, sad statement is our jails are better here than they are in El Salvador. And he's going to spend, God willing, the rest of his days behind bars. Investigators are still working. I mean, he worked a few odd jobs that we are familiar with. Did not live a very, expensive lifestyle. But this is a free country. You can, once you're in it, you can move from one jurisdiction to the next, very freely. And he did that from El Salvador into the United States to Los Angeles. Unfortunately, here to Harford County. And again, down in Prince George's County, we had him in the Virginia area, and then all the way out to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And in the year he's been in the country, a little year plus, who knows where else he's been. And it's a fear of mine. It's a fear of our investigators. And as Patty said, our investigators took this case to heart, as they do all the cases. But this case, they took to heart, and they worked so hard and have an emotional tie to it that I got off on a tangent. That they I lost my train of thought. Investigators are working that. We certainly know he has connections down in the DC area, both Virginia and Prince George's County. But again, as he moved around the country, there were places that we believe he probably had associates, and he has ties to known gangs. So we believe that's how he lived his life. That's where I was going before. We fear all the time, the investigators fear that we're going to stumble across another crime that just hasn't been tied back through DNA or some other science or electronic, tie, that the evidence just hasn't reached the point where we get a hit. But right now, what we're familiar with is the crime in Los Angeles, the home invasion in March of 2023, the homicide here of Rachel in August of 2023. And I believe in Tulsa, he's facing some local charges as well for last night. I think trespassing or disorderly or something to that effect. We're not familiar with any other. I'm not familiar with any other charges. No, in El Salvador, there is a what's it called, a red notice, which is basically an Interpol warrant for his arrest to bring him back there to stand for the homicide of the woman in that case down there. Well, and I gotta defer to our partners at the FBI on that one because they did most of the international.
Thanks, sir. So the FBI has personnel that are positioned throughout the world. They're called legal attaches. And we have a legal attache that is in El Salvador. As we were conducting some of the investigative actions along with Harford County, some of the investigative information took us to El Salvador and working with our partners there in order to understand some of the familial ties that are down there, and also bring together back a better understanding of the red notice that Sheriff Gaylor brought up as well. I don't have any information.
As I understand it, it was about, I don't know how many hours they're behind, 2, 3, Tulsa. So it was midnight our time, and he was hanging out at a business park or a storefront, and the police encountered him, and apparently there's a charge of, we say trespassing, and he was identified during that arrest and processing.
Just like I said, they got him in.
And that's been a question since the outset. Was Rachel's homicide random or targeted? And again, I don't know that we have that answer explicitly or completely. But at this point, there's nothing to indicate that anyone other than him was involved. We do have some belief that he spent some time here in the Bel Air area, so he may have seen her and her more or less routine operations. One of the things that we caution people, particularly women on the trail, about doing was developing a routine where it can be predicted where you might be. That would be my suspicion. If he decides to talk throughout the course of the days ahead to either investigators or prosecutors as it moves to that stage, we may learn more about, was it just an opportunity because he was on the trail when, unfortunately she decided to go out exercising that day, or was it something more specific? As to the motive, we've been tight-lipped, I guess, about it. The charges in the case are first-degree murder and first-degree rape.
There you go. You were right, Gary.
And as the colonel just reminded me to say, we do have right now in the air, we have sent investigators to Tulsa, Oklahoma, to follow up on many things related to this investigation. It's very active and ongoing, as I said. He will be extradited here eventually, and that will be done.
Retired.
That process has already been initiated, but it could take, as I understand, the state's attorney 10 to 30 days. 10 days if he doesn't fight it. 30 days if he decides to fight it, but he will be extradited.
So far, we're batting 1,000.
Chris, what's the guy's age?
Absolutely. So I think a lot of folks know genetic genealogy or investigative genetic genealogy in some of the cold cases, and certainly has gotten a lot of attention from
early 20s,
the Golden State Killer, and since then a lot of investigations on the cold case side. I think folks should also know that we prioritize the violent crime cases that are current, and that this is an
So within a
game-changing
few years of
investigative
the
tool
average
to
first offense
understand
in a killing
when there are
situation.
dry holes and there's no other leads to go, that we can apply the investigative genealogy to identify potentially family members, and then in doing that, take it on to a step where Harford County and our partners can conduct interviews to better understand who the potential subjects are and narrow down that scope. We also use it on, unfortunately, the victim side when we can't identify a victim through any other means, and building out the cases that way. We've seen over time 130 cases thus far since 2018 that have had successfully used investigative genetic genealogy.
Well, he was encountered by the police and agents for the FBI who were out there looking for him. So they had an idea of where he was. But I know that from that encounter, there's also a local charge of trespassing, not in a vehicle. He was apparently at that business, I guess, unwantedly so. He was. We already had the name. We had the arrest warrant. So when they encountered him, they knew he was wanted. So he was picked up for that. Oh, certainly, this is the more serious, the loss of life. California will follow up on their investigation. They would have to direct questions to that police. It's LAPD that is handling that as far as specifics to their investigation. But certainly, we have been in communication. Our investigators have been in communication with theirs. They are aware that we identified the suspect here, and by identifying our suspect, we have their suspect, they have their suspect, and they can move forward on charges. They would also file an arrest warrant on file. So, I never want him to leave Maryland again. I want him to die in a Maryland jail, Maryland prison system.
And we'll break that down after the press conference.
So I just hope he spends the rest of his days there. But if he ever got out of this one, he would be sent extradited to California. And if he got out of that one, there's still the red folder, the red notice where El Salvador would want him back, and ICE has marked him for detainer. So he would go back there to face those charges. I do not know. No. Actually, the major in the back is shaking his head no, he does not. And again, we shared the picture. You all will have the picture. It's going to be, no doubt out there on social media. So we're still looking for information. He was in this area for at least some period of time. And when I say the area, he was in the Bel Air area for some period of time before or right after the homicide, or both. So if people still have information, and now that there's a name to put with the face, investigators still want to talk to you. We still want to know. We still want to build that timeline, because there's a case to prosecute, and we want to put all the pieces together so that Ms. Healy can do her job most successfully.
Chris, they showed that photo, or you did?
I did.
Oh. But that photo is official, confirmed. We know that's the guy.
Yeah, that's the guy.
Certainly looks like him from the.
1,000%.
Yeah. Conference is muted.
It's over.
Oh, it's over. Okay.
Yeah, it's over. So, okay, let's go over a bunch of stuff here. This is great. Yeah, I muted it. Sorry, because it was just a thank you very much. We appreciate everybody, and it's good stuff.
I mean, Chris, it's pretty clear that we look. I mean, this is not about us at all, but I mean, I am pleased that so far there's nothing here that is inconsistent with what we anticipated. And where I wish I was wrong, that we were wrong, is that we anticipated that this was a sexually motivated serial killer. And we now know that there are 2 murders separated in time by a cooling off period. So this person meets criteria for serial killing. This is a serial killer. If this guy's guilty, he's joined the ranks of serial killer already, according to the FBI definition, right? 2 or more separated in time by cooling off period.
Here's your guy. Okay. Absolutely. And what's interesting is, when we first started talking about this, and anybody can go back and see what we presented because it's memorialized on YouTube. Okay. When I said that it's possible this guy's from El Salvador a while ago, and the reason for that was the neighborhood in LA and South Central. I said, you just don't, people were like, well, he's in the military. He's this. You don't show up in that neighborhood unless you can blend into that neighborhood. And there's a reason for that. It's because, I worked in Southern California. I worked over 300 murders in Southern California. I can't tell you how many guys I've seen like this that I've put into prison. And it's fascinating because in this particular case, the fact that you had mentioned, look, there's going to be prior somewhere. There's got to be something somewhere. I agreed with you 1,000%. Sure. And now we just heard today that he murdered another woman in El Salvador. He fled El Salvador, crossed the U.S. border into California, attacks the girl in Los Angeles. So that means he blended into that neighborhood in South Central. And then, and by the way, that was, on 78th Street in,
right.
South Central Los Angeles, 645 78th Street.
And it sounds like he had some support, at least.
Well, he had to have, because that neighborhood is so prevalent. It's a very, bad neighborhood. It's a very bad neighborhood. I mean, you just don't pull into that neighborhood. And if you're wearing the wrong color, you could die, like within 10 minutes of somebody seeing you. So he blends into this neighborhood and commits that crime. They get the DNA off of the hat that he left back. And then he flees to Maryland. He does Rachel's murder and then flees to it sounds like into the Tulsa, or at least he'd gone to different places, Virginia. He has contacts somewhere. So we said that this guy would be, a manual labor kind of guy. And, I said, go check those apartment complexes behind where the back of the tunnel would be, and or that kind of geographic region, and that he would hang out. He'd be the kind of guy that would be hanging out. And you had mentioned that as well. And lo and behold, where do they get him? Okay, well, first of all, let me explain a couple of things that happened, in my opinion, on this case. Okay. They got the DNA. The FBI went to work. They nail a family. They get a family member nailed down. They contact the authorities in El Salvador. They fly some agents down there. They do the buckles on everybody. Okay. Get them back into the system and go, boom, we got him. Okay. That now goes into what they call the NCIC, is National Crime Information Center. So they get the DNA hit, they get a warrant for his arrest, and that goes into NCIC. Well, from there, that information now is available to every law enforcement agency in the United States, every single one of them. And so here's a situation where the patrol, as we just said, even 10 minutes ago, 15 minutes before the press conference started, patrol gets a call of a individual hanging out in front of a store. They get this guy, they run him, and boom, they get the NCIC hit. Okay. And they knew he was in that area because he mentioned that they had FTS, which is a fugitive task force. So they were already on this guy looking for him. And that's probably because he was in communication with the family. And they may have had what they call a pen link trap on his communication devices.
Oh, interesting, Chris. I hadn't thought of that. That's interesting.
To where they could pin him down into a geographic region. They can't pin him down specifically, but they may have had some stuff working behind the scenes to say, hey, this guy's in Tulsa. And so that's where you hear the FTS and the U.S. Marshals get involved, the Joint Terrorists and also JTTF. But the FTS, which is the Fugitive Task Force, this is a highly violent task force. All they do is chase these guys around the country. He also had an Interpol warrant out of El Salvador. So they knew this guy's shoe size. They had pictures of him. They knew exactly who this guy is. It was a matter of finding him and crossing their fingers that God, willing, he would not kill anybody else. And thank goodness that we know of right now. We don't, and I'm with you, Gary. I am not convinced there's not another victim somewhere in this country that he may have taken another life, and we won't.
Or a sexual assault, an SA. I wouldn't be surprised.
That's it. Right, but we won't find out about that until that DNA goes back into the system, meaning in terms of people start testing it against now, a buccal swab, because they took this guy, they hook him up last night, they take him over to the county jail, and they do a buccal on him quickly. And there are a couple of systems, I've mentioned these before. There's one called ANDI, ANDI, and it's a rapid DNA machine. Within 2 hours, you can get a definitive hit, not 100%, but you get a 60% hit. Yeah, this is your guy. And then from there, they process that information rapidly through Quantico. And they're confident enough now, as of last night, this is the guy. Okay. And so it starts off with the family stuff. It starts off with the feds, and that's where the FBI has the resources, to go to all of these countries. They have agents in country down there that they probably picked up the phone. They call the consulate down there in El Salvador who has a relationship with the government and says, look, we got a guy that, we're looking for. And they said, oh, well, we're looking for him too. So now there was that joint cooperation between countries, the U.S. and El Salvador, and either side was ready. And this is where the Article 4 information that we talked about, you have to have your ducks lined up, because Central America is a different beast in terms of their criminal system. You have to have all your information lined up, and to that agency, if this guy was in El Salvador and they would have arrested him, then that's a whole different game. There's a new president down there who has wrapped up these MS-13 gangbangers. It will not surprise me that there's a gang affiliation I'm not saying he is a gangbanger. I'm saying he has a gang affiliation somewhere with somebody in his family and or in his barrio where he lives. Somebody's is connected to either MS-13 or something, which would give him a pass in the neighborhood in South Central Los Angeles. And Jeff Wood can, can talk to us about that all day because, you know, I had Jeff on here.
Yeah.
You know, he was one of the first FBI agents that took down MS-13 in the Boston area years ago, and he also took down the Marathon bomber. He was part of that operation.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys can see that if you've not seen Jeff, he's in the playlist on the Boston Marathon bombing. He's a fascinating guy. I may get him on for this one. But so from there, that, you know, NCIC is the key here. And so we had, it sounds like the FTS, the Fugitive Task Force, the U.S. Marshal's Office, and HIDA. Now, why HIDA is interesting is HIDA is high impact drug trafficking. Okay. Now, that's really fascinating because HIDA teams are all over the country. Okay. It's an initiative of the federal government. And what it is, these are individual task force members that are assigned from geographic regions within a geographic region, i.e. if you've got, you know, like the I-40 corridor, east and west from California to, you know, New Mexico, for an example, the I-40 corridor through Arizona, they have a HIDA team up there because it's a heavily trafficked area. That's how they move fentanyl and stuff like that. So the geographic law enforcement agencies within that corridor, each agency assigns an officer who is cross-sworn as a federal agent on a HIDA team. And the reason for that is they get federal money, okay, to do that. And they stop these heavy loads of narcotics traveling through the country. There's one in Southern California that, you know, up the 15, up the 5, and it goes all the way up through Los Angeles, then up through San Bernardino, as well as into Ventura, and all the way up into Northern California. But the HIDA teams run those. And the fact that the sheriff here mentioned that there was a HIDA unit involved also leads me to believe he may have been running drugs as a mule for maybe bigger things, i.e. cartels. And that puts him on the road and puts him moving around the country. Now, this is just a hypothesis.
Interesting.
Okay? But it won't surprise me in the fact that he mentioned that there's a HIDA group that was involved in this. Okay? They may have had prior contact, i.e. traffic stop, on this individual. I don't know. That's just, again, that's a hypothesis. But my experience with HIDA groups, that is not going to surprise me. Okay. The fact that the sheriff mentioned a HIDA group is really unusual in a homicide this high profile. Okay. And which would make sense why he's in South Central Los Angeles. If he's running mule for dope, then that's, you know, that would be a problem. Okay. And in the his side hustle is murdering women. So, you know, as crazy as that sounds, that will not surprise me because he fits the age, you know, 23, et cetera. And he fits your demographic, Gary, of development into a very dangerous serial killer because he has the mobility to move around the country, and he probably had the money to do it. If he's working, you know, running as a mule. So this is going to be really interesting to hear more details unfold on this thing. And by the way, Tulsa is part of that route. And also in Georgia, up the 60, you know, up the 65, that's a HIDA route as well. And across the 20 and the 40 in the U.S., those are all routes. If anybody wants to do some research, type in HIDA, HIDTA, and look where the HIDA groups are around the country. Around the country. All right, so let me grab some of these here.
You know, Chris, it's so disturbing to me
You guys don't apologize for anything.
No, it's so disturbing to me that, I mean, you know,
What do I need to apologize for? I'll apologize. What's the issue? What's the issue?
You hear me, Chris? You
Yeah,
guys? Oh, okay. No, I was just gonna say, there's something about this guy having "Just Do It" on his shirt that's kind of horrifying to me. But you know, Nike. This is, I mean, obviously, I'm not saying this has any real meaning other than this kind of weird poetic thing. Nike, the goddess Nike, that name in Greek, in Proto-Greek, means to attack violently or to attack vehemently. And it is disturbing to me that that's on the shirt of this person. You know, I just think that's horrifying. Like, attack violently, just do it. I can't tell you how much that horrifies me. But Chris, this picture seems to predate coming to the United States, right?
Yeah,
it looks taller. He's not worked out a little bit. He looks like he's in a setting that's doesn't.
It looks like South, Central America. It looks like Guatemala, but obviously it's El Salvador. I would put money on it. It looks like, Dylan was down in Antigua, Guatemala for 2 years, and these are the kind of photos that he would take all day long, and that's why he speaks fluent Spanish. When we put the Spanish information out for Rachel's killer, and everybody said, why are you doing that? Well, this is why. We were batting 1,000 that day too.
Well, so Chris, don't you think that the reason the hair is so different and that he works out or whatever he does, I mean, it's all part of this escaping from El Salvador and trying to look different, or at least feel strong and tough or attractive or whatever. But there's some kind of transition, right? So we imagine a guy who, kills theoretically for the first time. I don't know if they mentioned if there was an essay associated with that, but it would be hard to believe that that wasn't the point given what happens later. What's also interesting is, Chris, you said that thing about, he kills women as a side thing. Well, I'm not sure it's women, because remember the victim in the LA home was a child. We don't know if it was the mother that was the target or the child, but you remember I had said on one of the prior episodes where we discussed him with family, or maybe Doug McGregor, I had said that I think this guy has a such an overarching thing with females that it doesn't matter who they are, how old they are, what they look like, nothing. Which is exactly why I didn't see him to be the type of person who would stalk, because the victim doesn't have to be particular. They just have. This is really, as I had said, to understand this guy is you have to think of an animal or an insect or something that has no home, and it's just totally hungry and predatory, and lives in a kind of a nest, or builds a nest even temporarily, and just leaps out and takes what it wishes, violently, and then just moves on. What does that say?
Thank you for everything, and we appreciate you very, very much. Fugitive recovery. I love it.
But Chris, don't you think that there's like an animal, almost predatory, like just a kind of like a quality of just having an appetite and not really caring where it's satisfied? And that's what I think is so hard about this, is we came to understand Rachel as a human, as a full person, reflected in the people who love her, and from photographs and what the press said about her. And, and to this individual, this person would have been absolutely nothing but a kind of a package. Like, when there are serial killers who say things like that, like, I threw her away like I throw away the wrapping on the cigarettes when I was done smoking them. And that's heartbreaking, but that's what we have to rejoice about, is not only that this family will gain some modicum of closure, but also the idea that this guy, if he's guilty, can't keep going on and doing that and destroying lives and objectifying women in a horrifying way. I mean, wouldn't you say, Chris? I mean, that is something to rejoice over.
This whole this whole problem, I mean, what I'm watching the chat on people, having opinions about, open borders and politics and everything. And, that has nothing to do with me and my channel, guys. Okay. What the reality of this is, this guy came across the border illegally. That's reality. Let's stay with the facts. Okay. Where he's from, I said South America or Central America. I even mentioned El Salvador. Okay. That's 100%. He's there. But let's go back to the 80s. Okay. Let's just rewind in the United States. Okay. I'm not political in nature in any way, shape, or form in terms of this issue. I think there can be resolutions. I mean, for goodness sakes, my son just spent 2 years in Guatemala. Okay. This is not about politics for this family or this channel. Okay. And it's also okay to agree to disagree with other people. Okay. But, don't come into my house here, i.e. this channel, and, just spout whatever you want to spout. Okay. That's okay. But be respectful to one another. And also, this is part of the problem with our society today. We can't even have a conversation. And when you limit the ability to speak, people will pick up guns. And we need to stop doing that as a society. This guy left. We don't know what his motivation is to leave that country. We know that he killed another human being in El Salvador. We know he came to the United States illegally, based on what the evidence is showing. We know he killed a woman in the United States, attacked another girl in the United States. Okay. Well, guess what? I have been in this business since 1982. This is nothing new. This is not a new phenomenon. It's just bigger than it used to be. That's the problem. Okay? That is the problem. When you work in San Diego, you can't get any closer than the U.S. border. In fact, it's in San Ysidro. It is part of San Diego County, the U.S. checkpoint to Mexico. I speak with authority. I was there. I did it. And so when you come into my chat from wherever you came from, stop it, please. Let other people have opinions. It's okay. It really is. It's okay. This is about Rachel and her life being taken, and unfortunately, by somebody who's here illegally, just like Riley and others. And there will be more. Okay. But guess what? Today, there are a lot of Americans that just killed each other somewhere. They just killed each other because they can't talk to each other. Violence is because you don't give somebody else either an opportunity to express their feelings or listen to what they're feeling. And in this particular case, Dr. Brucato would submit to you that his feelings were driven by this motivation of SA. And it's not going to surprise us, right, Gary? It won't surprise you, I know, if we find out in, El Salvador that this guy, you did, what we call a 261 PC. You can go look it up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But at the same time,
nothing surprised me, Chris, in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, this is terrible, and this is where I wanted to finish my story about the guy in the wood house. Okay, I went over and I talked to this guy, and sure enough, he's a Mexican national. I had to take this guy down to the federal courts and get him paroled to me. through a immigration warrant. And this is how the system works for a witness. This guy witnessed. So the guy was up in his little tree house. He looks down, and this murder is going down right in front of him. He witnessed the entire thing. So I needed this guy in the country to testify in this murder trial. And so I had to take him down to the Customs Immigration Enforcement. And this was in the early 90s. And they paroled him to me through a federal judge, i.e., every 6 months, I had to take him back down to the court and get an extension until it went to trial. Okay. And they give him a temporary visa into the U.S. Okay. And, as a result of that, this guy ended up testifying in our murder, and he was able to nail this guy to the wall. We don't know how many illegal immigrants are involved in this murder of Rachel Morin in terms of witnesses. Those people will be brought into court, and you're going to see another side of the immigration situation in our country. Okay. We need to somehow just, realize that this is a country of laws. And we need to be respectful to each other about those laws. And if somebody breaks the laws, I'm the first one to tell you they need to be held accountable. And you do not enter this country illegally. Evident of the fact that this guy is a product of that capability. Now, what the solution for that is, it's above my pay grade. But it's not above my pay grade in my chat. Okay? Because I try to be respectful to everybody, and we just need to make sure that we stay, above the fray out there. Because there's enough channels out there where you can go, scream and shout and everything. But we are all in this together. We're all in this together, and somehow we can't let people like this divide us. We need to be together in this. And it doesn't matter what religion, it doesn't matter what political ideology we may have. Okay? It does not matter. We live in the United States of America, and we're Americans. And we need to treat each other like that. I mean, am I off base here with anything with that concept? But, we're talking about Rachel Morin, and I'm looking at the chat and people are arguing. I mean, it's crazy what we've become. It really is.
Well, because the notion of something slipping through the wall, the border, the fence, whatever, feels to us, that invasion feeling. It gets our primitive senses up, it gets people's adrenaline pumping. They want to protect, and it's like when a cockroach gets in your house or a something like that. Now look, I don't like the comparison of any human being to something like that, so please don't think that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that for some people it feels like something is invading your private space, and whether it's a human, an animal, whatever. Let me be crystal clear there, because there are a few things in this world I have less tolerance for than judging people according to their race or their creed or any other aspect of them. So that's not what I mean. I just mean that it's that animal instinct of something is in my place and I want it out, and they start getting, it's like a giant immune system that wants to push out a splinter. And so you see that reaction of people. They get whipped up, they get defensive and protective. But I think that when calmness prevails, people will realize that, they can hold multiple things in their minds at the same time. There can be a debate about that stuff, which is totally fair. And it's also fair to kind of say, right now, that's not what this is about, right? I mean, this is about that a person who would have probably gone on to a career of killing many, many women, or at least assaulting some more, was stopped through science, police work, a collective effort, the family's nonstop effort, and I would like to think a higher power. And it's okay to rejoice about that, about the terrible things that were prevented by this, instead of saying it's time to go back and figure out everything that went wrong and caused this. I think let's put our focus forward and say the future is brighter now because one less person in that rare circle of people who do this is out there. One of the things I had said at that press conference was that you really have to understand, and I'll say it again for those who didn't hear, is that there's this circle of people, mostly men, who repeatedly commit SA. And in that circle, there's a smaller circle of men who do that, of people who do that with a kind of sadistic violence, but they don't kill their victims. And then there are those in a smaller circle within that do kill their victims, usually because there's too much force asserted, or because, it's an accident, or they want to get rid of a witness, or they start to enjoy that as an extra bonus or something on top of the. And then there's the rarest of all, who are the ones that keep someone alive a long time for torture, like it's being theorized, accused, that went on with Rex Heuermann. But with this person, we got to like that third circle, right? That's pretty bad, but it's also, pretty rare. And then you want to think, out of all the people that are in that circle, how many of them are illegally here? Well, it won't be that many, right? So it's a portion, perhaps, but not the bulk, right? And I like to think in statistics like that. So that's sort of the way that you want to think about it, is some is not all. And the other thing is, let's not allow the darkness of something like what this guy did to tear people asunder. Remember that the word diabolical has its Greek roots in the words that mean to tear asunder. And people don't need to be torn asunder. That's a characteristic of evil, that it tears people apart. What good people do is they come together. And that's what I think Chris's channel is all about. It's about the spiritually driven truth that when people come together, good things happen and the light cleanses. Wouldn't you say, Chris?
Yeah, I think, we started this channel, Karen and I started this channel for families and victims. Okay. That's why we did this. I didn't even want to do this.
That's right.
You know that. And
I don't like doing it too much either, because I get abused sometimes.
And within 8 months, they took, trolls took me down. Okay. And I had to fight and show YouTube that I didn't do it. And they put me back up. I mean, it was, but that the point, I learned so much when that happened about the spirit out here in the world, in the society, in our society, in the US more than anywhere else. And for anybody that doesn't think, that I don't think we need to control, what's going on in this country in terms of, people flowing this way or that way. I am a person of, high integrity in relationship to everything I try to do. And I'm a law and order guy. I'm the first guy at the door to say, no, we can't do that. Okay. And I mean, I went through hell in San Diego with the Michael Crow case because I was the only detective in San Diego that said, don't arrest that guy. Okay, there's problems here. We've got reasonable doubt. And they did it anyway. And the AG's office did it anyway. And they put that guy, Richard Tua, they put him on trial. And guess what? He was found not guilty. And next thing you know it, they're all coming to me going, you're the only guy that stood out. And I said, yeah. And I got crucified for it. I mean, I got people on YouTube that said I arrested people that I didn't arrest. I wasn't even there. I wasn't even involved in it, in that piece. But my point being is I try to do the right thing. And, and I'm not that, I'm not perfect in any way, shape, or form. But if at the same time, I try to give people an opportunity to say what they want to say. And the criminal elements, I agree. They're coming over, but they've been coming over. Remember, Reagan gave amnesty in 1989 to millions of immigrants, millions. And they said the same thing back then. So history's repeating itself. Now, the volumes are different, but it's a historical context that's taking place once again, and we're watching it. But what's sad to watch is we Americans are turning on each other.
Right.
And that needs to stop. It's just crazy. We need to stop. Here's a good one right here. Thank you, 99 Balloons. You see this little girl? This is Leticia Hernandez. December 16th, 1989, she was abducted and murdered. And I worked her case. All of her parents were from Mexico. And this little girl. Her life mattered because she's a human being. Rachel's life mattered because she's a human being. And I want to get back to the focus of this for Rachel and her family.
Right.
But this is why we need to be a little more civilized, I think, with each other. And
I think, Chris, the whole true crime community needs to be. That's very, very important. Right. Because, to me, what you want to be careful of are people that, now, how do I say this? You want to be careful of people that appear to be kind of in the light, that they're right, they're kind of righteous. They have an indignation about, and then what happens is when given the opportunity, that same person, those same people can prove to be only as loyal as their options and will throw you under the bus or get a few ratings off you. They'll sell you for 30 pieces of silver and not one less. And what I think you hang on to, and this is why one of the things I love about you, Chris, is that you're in this kind of cesspool of the true crime community. You, for good or ill, mistakes, some mistakes, whatever, you're a human being whose heart is good, and you don't crush other people to get there. I think that's why your numbers are so great, because I think that shines through. And this is a place where it's okay to say, I'm not perfect. I don't need to hurt anybody else. I'm just telling my opinions, and sometimes I'll be wrong and sometimes I'll be right. And who cares? Because my goal is not to look like some kind of prescient genius. It's to just help people, right? And that's why I've always been impressed by this station. And I think that's why I love when you correct that kind of thing in almost a parental way when people are attacking each other, because there's no room for that here. This is supposed to be a safe haven from that kind of crap. And wouldn't you say, Chris? I mean, that's what I've always loved about your show.
I appreciate you saying that, Gary. This week, I mean, and I'm going to share with the world here today. Okay. This week, I've been dealing with this for quite some time, and Karen and I don't, voice our private matters, but you see this, okay, and you'll see, I don't know if you can see this one, okay, but anyway, there's like a 8-inch scar over here, okay, all the way down my shoulder. I've been fighting cancer. Okay, I'll just put it out there. We're better than this as a society. And, I'm fine. We're doing great at this end. But there's enough hate in the world. There's enough, fakeness in the world.
Correct.
For clicks and views and likes and, I hate this person. I hate that person. That person's wrong. Okay, well, maybe they are. Maybe they're not. I don't know.
Right.
Okay. But do we have to tear them down? The answer is no. I mean, I could not believe when I saw you on the press conference the other day and how other people, professionals, jumped in and immediately started to go after you. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, let me get this right. These people are professionals. You wrote the book that they're reading and learning from, okay? And you're not allowed to have an opinion. That's what it came down to.
The point is, first of all, I didn't really have an opinion. I just sort of said these are possibilities, and I'm agnostic. And number two, I think they weren't really professionals who said that. It was more like people that dabble or that are associated in a kind of ancillary way with this stuff. And listen, I think that if I had misunderstood what somebody was saying and it sounded the way they understood it, I'd be passionate too. I'd be passionate against myself. And I'm a person that's very open to people pointing out when you say something that's misinterpreted. So you have a chance to say, oh, that's not what I meant. And then you apologize and you gain more intimacy and deeper connection with people. You don't have to be, fight with them. Chris, I think in the end, the truth of things always rises to the surface, and there's no need to be defensive. I'm not worried. I know what I said and I know what I meant, and so I'm not really worried about that. But I just think it's important for people to be able to hold in their mind possibilities. That's what we're here for. And it wasn't, as I said, it wasn't really professionals who did that, right? Now, regarding what you announced here today, Chris, I can't tell you how grateful I am that you're okay. The world is more interesting with you in it, in my opinion. For a lot of reasons. Now, this, I will tell you that this getting solved today was a huge shot in the arm for me. Because, this whole true crime cesspool, you find yourself wondering, what am I doing this for? And then this kind of thing happens and you go, that's what you're doing it for. That's all it's for. That's all it's for. You know what I'm saying? That's all. So we'll just keep on doing what we're doing.
Yeah, we keep pressing forward and, try to live, the best that we can. We're not perfect. God knows our hearts. He knows our, think not what thou shalt say, for in the very moment I will fill thy mouth. And we just keep doing what we do. I love our nurses. I love our doctors. I love our cops. I love our military. I love our Border Patrol guys. I mean, those guys are getting beat up left and right, not only politically, but on the ground.
Right. And this country was built on the backs of immigrants.
And I come from a family with two Marines. Both of my, my parents, are buried in Arlington. If you want to see a great funeral, look my dad up. He's on YouTube. Look at Master Gunnery Sergeant John J. McDonough, Arlington Cemetery. That's his funeral. And it's, he was an amazing human. And he told me many, many times, he said, saddle up, move on, treat people with respect, love your neighbor as you love yourself, and everything will fall into place. God will take the rest. And my dad fought in 3 wars, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And I hate to see what's happening to this country in terms of how we're treating each other, because we have political differences in terms of opinions. And we're, whatever happened to the time where you would ride your bike and Mr., whoever would wave at you, or in the neighborhood, they'd be the elderly would lean out the window and say, knock it off. I'm talking to your mom, tomorrow. And you look up and you go, sorry, and all the kids got together and said, Mrs. Schmidt saw me, blah, she's going to tell mom, says, I'll talk to her. Don't worry. I know my grandmother knows, blah. That's just where we're at. And you know what? I am so grateful for each and every one of you that comes to this channel. I really am. I'm just so grateful. And there's Buddy in the background. Looks like he just woke up.
Adorable.
He is the best.
Look at him.
That said, I learned a lot living in Hawaii as a kid, because my dad was stationed in Kaneohe at the Marine Corps Air Station there, and we lived in Kailua. I went to school there and other places. But that's why we have the aloha spirit here on this channel. I always think about the poor people in Maui who lost everything in Lahaina, their homes, their livelihoods. Imagine, and this puts this type of stuff in perspective always. I remember when my son died in 2003, I remember driving like 4 or 5 months later, listening to the radio. And I had an epiphany about a father who lost his whole family, his like 4 or 5 kids, his wife, and it was just him. He woke up in the hospital and they told him, that your family had been taken in this horrific car accident. And I remember having this amazing experience internally where I said, I can do this. I can get through this. I don't know what it means, but somehow that guy has it worse than me. And it taught me a lot about life. And so let's continue to be good to each other, whatever that means. Thank goodness for the Morin family. They are going to get some justice here. Thank goodness for Dee Warner's family. They're going to get some justice with that turd being taken to prison. And by the way, they bound him over in the Dee Warner case. Thank goodness for Maya's family that she's getting some justice. Yeah, right here, Charlotte. I didn't even know you put this up. I just said it. I was on another page here. Yes, she's going to get justice here. And Dee will get justice, as many, many, many others. And we are so grateful that each and every one of you are with us. And if you could hit that button, though, and pass this around, that would really help us, in the long run here. But anyway, any other thoughts, Gary?
No, I think that's it. I'm just really happy for the Morin family that they can begin to achieve some kind of closure. This horrible thing.
Yeah. And it's just begun. I talked to, a family member this morning, and I told them you're in phase 2 now, just like I did with Maya's family when Richard and Mary Chris, I was talking to them recently, and I said, look, be patient, but you're only in phase 2. So it's gonna be rough, because now they have to go through, they have to see the photos, they have to listen to all the motions, just like in, Kaylee, Madison's, Anna, and Ethan's families. They have to now go through and listen to all this stuff on, how the court system works. But I assured them the system works if we maintain the course. And I think if we keep doing that and maintaining a course here within civility to each other, we'll actually become friends. We may have differences, and that's okay. That's what life's about. Even the Lord looked at Judas and said, do what thou doest quickly. But he didn't condemn him. And if we can somehow figure out what that means and how it connects to treating and how we treat one another, it takes less muscles to raise a smile on your face than a frown. Okay? That's been proven. God bless you all. I'll see you on the next one. God bless Rachel and Dr. Brucato. Thank you so much. I know we've got a big show coming up with, can I mention it already?
Yeah, of course.
With Dr. Burgess. Ann is coming on. We're going to honor her. We're going to get everybody together. We've got a whole bunch of people coming up. We're going to get them all here, and we are going to celebrate Anne's life. And she's got this huge Hulu program coming out. Gary's in many of the episodes, and
on all of them, I think I'm on all of them. I heard, yeah. But the little pieces. Who cares about that? It's about Anne.
And you working behind the scenes, in terms of your assessments on many other cases and with many other patients that you work with. And if you're in the Manhattan area and you need a great psychologist, Dr. Brucato's office is available. Call his staff, make an appointment. But he also does amazing things around the world through the Cold Case Foundation when we get into cases that potentially are international, but even in the U.S. And when he stands next to somebody, it doesn't necessarily mean he's part of what they believe, but he's an independent professional expert in what he knows. And that is the difference. And so, quite frankly, you've got to also give John Ray a shout out. He's got a lot of courage. He's got a lot of information, and he's been involved in that case for at least 13 years, if not more. So, don't discount some of the things he says, but it doesn't mean we're saying it from the Cold Case Foundation or Dr. Brucato saying it. And it doesn't mean he's saying it on behalf of us or we're saying it on behalf of him. He is another free thinker, and we've had him on this show, and we're going to have him on again at some point. Trust me. So let's keep the course. Let's go to Hawaii.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts, wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah, make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away. You and me go to our favorite place. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer breeze, some fresh air to put my mind at ease. No cares. You wanna come with me? Me and you go to our favorite tree. Are you ready now? We jump on a plane now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. Don't hesitate now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking